Hello everyone. If you follow us on social media, you might have seen this tank already. But you haven't seen a video about it. It was a secret, but why? Now this video is partially about that reason. This should have been my contest tank for this year, but it doesn't really look the part. We're gonna try to fix it today. I'm already late for the contest, but I'm gonna try to do my best to fix it. So, it's early June now. This whole story started back in January. It's the 15th of January today. The plan is to start my IPLC tank, fill up and start the tank for this year on the 28th of January. Now, while I talk, you're gonna see some footage of how it all came to this stage. It was 3-step building the tank. This would be the main frame. Now I could create a cave in here, or the mirror thing, like Juan did with the 45-degree angle. Done. Doesn't work like this. Starting to question all the decisions I thought I already made. This is a story about how you should take a step back from time to time during building your layout and realizing if it's not okay. Gonna be an accident here shortly. First of all, you can see it's not an Iwagumi. I let myself be convinced that I should once again try to step out of my comfort zone, which I believe is a very good thing, but not when you're trying to build something for a contest. Here we are on day 2 of my PLC project. I'm going to use the reverse compound for all my gluing today. But I got advice from great people on building with wood, and we received a fresh shipment early January where I have found these pieces, especially these two in the middle. I completely fell in love with. I even had some inspiration for this specific layout, which was the work of Philip Schwartz from last year. I can't really put it into words. His layout had some kind of special dynamic, which is a bit new to me. I had the feeling from the very beginning, and the guys here at Green Aqua told me as well, that this gap is huge, so there should be something done about that. I was adamant that the plants will sort that out, which now you can see they didn't. During the actual build, I already had like a huge piece of stone added in here, and then for some reason I convinced myself it's not good. Ott túl van gondolva, ezzel nem, nature, és akkor viszont ez se. Füvek, a növényekkel kell játszani, kész. Akarod ezt elvenni tőlem, az szépen kérlek. But it was good, so that's why we're gonna follow that or continue that part today. I'm the happiest I've ever been after building Hardscape with wood. So that's a good sign. When you look at the planting, I wanted to mix the wooden layout with the, well, lots of different types of grass, which, you know, I'm having that phase of my life that I'm building with grass everywhere. The day has come to plant my scape for this year. I've actually shown the Hardscape to both Luca and Fabian, and let's just say they don't understand my concept. I hope that slightly changes with the planting. I've ordered about 260 pots, if I remember correctly. This is the time to thank Tropica for sponsoring the layout with all the plants. At least now the video goes out, so that's important.
Sorry for interrupting the video, I'll be quick, I promise. We just wanted to tell you about our YouTube membership program, because if you enjoy what we do here, this is one of the best ways to support the channel. So we've got 3 tiers: the silver, the gold, and the diamond. Silver is basically the buy us a coffee every month tier. Very kind, very appreciated, very caffeinated. But gold is where things get really interesting. Gold and diamond members get early access to our Thursday videos already on Monday, so you can watch them before everyone else, hang out with us in the comments, and feel slightly superior for 3 whole days. You'll also get monthly exclusive blooper reels, plus early info about Green Aqua sales, workshop events, and other stuff before we announce it publicly. So if you'd like to support the channel and get a few nice perks while you're at it, check out the join button below. And just to be clear, our regular videos are not going anywhere. If you choose not to join our membership, you'll still be able to watch the main Green Aqua content for free, just like before. And now, back to the video, which is, unlike me, much more interesting to look at.
First plant, Aquarium Articularis Mini. And this is going to be my main carpet in the front. That gives you a hint about the whole vibe of this tank. I'm going to use grassy plants only, but a bunch of different types, different shapes, different colors, different thickness, different leaf size. Everything you can imagine, it looks like a grass, is going to be in this tank. I have the main carpet done, and here are my accents to it. I have Blixa japonica and I have Helantium tenellum red. I don't want very strong red colors in this scape, but I want the small red pinkish accents, and these 2 plants are going to be perfect for that. And actually we have new lights installed over this tank. These are the Skylight Parmaster lights, insanely powerful. I have no idea how we're going to run them for the layout itself, but they're going to help a lot with the red colors. You guys asked this many times, how long do we keep these tanks up and running here in the showroom? Now, what I would say, on average, a tank runs for about a year. Now, this has been running for less than 3 months, and obviously we want to keep it running. I also have my next plan ready for this aquarium, so in the fall this tank will be rebuilt. Now moving on to the higher plants, and what I have is Aquarium Articularis. This is the high grass that I have in the Iwagumi layout, and that's the effect I want. Over here and on the other side, I want a thick high curtain of grass. I also have Tropica Aquarium Parvula, which will be slightly shorter, so that's going to be the transition from the carpet to the curtain. And I also have Aquarium Montevidensis, or Aquarium SP as they call it now, from Tropica again. Now that's very high, so that's going to close off the edge. I'm going to actually plant it around the corners. I have all these small rocks that Vicky tied for me with moss. For now, this is going to be all the moss inside the tank. I want to cover most of the sand part with this. That's it, I can't believe, but this tank is ready to start. It's a long journey to get here, and there's a lot more to come. And there's another reason why it has to be rebuilt. We are on the edge of the glass giving up. And I think this is a good occasion for you to learn about how you know there is a problem with your glass. This tank is more than 10 years old. We have noticed signs months ago that there might be a problem coming, and by now it's very certain. If you look at both sides of the tank, you can clearly see that there is water in between the side glass and the front glass. The first sign you see is basically small bubbles, but what's already visible here and on the other side as well is algae between the 2 glass. The thing that you see in movies, that the whole front glass just pops off, smashes on the ground, nothing happening before that. It can happen, but it's very, 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 very rare to happen. What usually happens, and what definitely will happen in this tank as well if we don't act on time, is that on the very top, it's gonna slowly start to leak. Even then, if you lower the water level a few centimeters below the point where it actually leaks, you're perfectly fine for some time. It was 3 big days, and now today is the time to make everything a lot better. The whole layout didn't work out. It's my fault, no one else's. This happens. I think it's very important to realize when you should give up. This tank, it fits here in the gallery, but it's very far from contest level. I don't think there's anything else to do before building. What else can you fix the layout with other than stones? My plan is to actually build a stone wall behind the wooden structure on both sides, and all the plants that are now in the background, I want to add more soil, and I want to pull up the plants so they stick out behind the rock wall. First of all, I'm going to need to drain some of the water before building. I don't want to drain too much. Tricky thing for today is the water level itself is going to break up the visual from the front. We'll see what we'll see. I think this is too thick. This one would be the best choice. This curve follows somewhat the curve of the left wood. Now, this turly stone is kind of heavy. It's very similar to Frodo stone in a lot of aspects, like textures, some of the colors. Probably as I put in the stones, the background is going to actually disappear on seed, but later on I want to elevate the background, the soil itself, and pull up the plants a bit so they stick out from behind the wall. Okay, so that actually works quite nicely there. I have plants in front and I have lots of space behind. That was the goal. Turly stone is the sort of new stone from Riverest, our supplier. It's very heavily textured. If it's completely full on visible, it can be a bit too much. So what I have to make sure of is when I build the wall, some of the plants have to be visible in front of the stones to soften out the textures of the stones. Does it actually fit in there? That's the question. Get it under the wood. It's much more difficult to build a tank like this. It's much better when you start out as you should, not fix it later. I also don't want to lose too much depth, exactly because of this, that I want the 2 layers of plants in front and back of the rock. Okay, that's left side done. And now I have a nice opening over there, so I'm happy with that. The left side is good as it is. Now to the right side. Ooh, it's quite difficult to place the rock when you have no clue where the bottom is, but that I like. Should I keep this area as it is? Or should I put a big rock in here and this would be my only opening left? Now the layout has become very rock heavy on the background, and the rocks in the front that I've used originally have sort of disappeared in between the plants, so I'm gonna win some of them back. This is gonna be controversial, but I'm gonna actually push the plants to hide some of the bottom parts. Could have washed the rocks before use. What we're gonna do now is drop the water level even more, because with that I can actually clean out some of the cloudiness. Now it's obviously a big advantage for us to be able to pick out any hardscape coming in. We have big shipments coming, and then we can pick and choose the best pieces for ourselves if we want to. Promise you, we don't do that on a regular basis. We only do that when we have a plan in our head. So in here, I wanted to use ironwood. So when our Riverest shipment came in, I took whatever I liked before it got into the pieces that we sell. But with Riverest, we actually get really nice hardscape. So there's a bunch left that looks good as well. And I quite like the turly stone and the ironwood working together. While we are waiting for the water level to drop even more, I can talk about the fish, which Some of you might have already noticed that there are no fishes. I mean, there are algae eaters inside. We're actually going to use two types of fish we've never used before, so stick around till the end to see what they are. One of them is called tomato fish in Hungarian, but I think that doesn't mean anything to you. So, what I'm going to do now is, I've already checked, I pulled on the grass in the back, and it comes up with the roots with a quite thick piece of soil. So, behind this rock, I'm actually going to cut out the grass carpet as one piece. I'm going to pour in new soil and I'm going to place it back on top. Never done this before. And this is my first time using this shape of scissor. If you go check out, we have a video about all the different ADA tools and the reason why there are so many. And this is the perfect time because the curve lets me cut very close to the rock. Well, something has happened, definitely. Problem is I don't see the bottom of the tank, so don't actually have a clue what's happening. This doesn't help anything. This is actually why you need to be very slow on filling up a new tank, because if you were doing it quickly, then your whole tank would look like this. But since it's just a corner, I don't care that much. The filter is going to clean it out very quickly, and we're going to do an immediate water change after fill up. I'm going to put the carpet back in because the grass itself is quite high, so I don't need to raise the soil completely behind the rock. So I'm a bit worried that it won't stay down, so I'm going to grab a few pieces of small rocks that I'm going to put in onto it. Funny thing about the plants, when I sent my order for Tropica, for the sponsorship, they couldn't supply me with the long grass at that moment, which happens. So I asked another company, I won't name them, to send me really high grass, and that's not what I got. So that's why even after 3 months, the grass is about this high instead of this high. This doesn't happen with Tropica. Actually, if you're interested in how the plants are made and why you always get this very same type of plant if you order, then we have a quite interesting video about how all these plants are made, produced, and they have something called a gene bank, which provides you the same plant every single time. And I need to do something similar here on this side. So if Aaron needs footage about how I pull up the plants, now is the time. Is it coming up with the soil? That's the goal. Okay, now it's coming with the soil, you just don't see anything. I'm gonna now dump this back in. Now, this is now smaller than the area of the soil because there was a piece of rock here as well, which I've covered now. That's it, I need to fill. We're gonna introduce the fish I've mentioned, and I'll be back in a second to talk about it and talk about how this all came out. Don't get me wrong, still not contest level. That's why I didn't do this back in April instead of giving up. But I believe it's much better than it was. Here we are a month after the upgrade, and I quite like how it turned out. We are very far from the original concept of building a contest aquascape. It obviously is not, but the addition of the rocks compared to the bare frame of the wood, it elevated the scape a lot, and I like it a lot more than I expected. I just stop and stand here and look at it more than I was expecting to. Obviously, now we got some fish inside. We have some Raminose tetras. They are perfect for this size because they swim about all the time in one big pack. So that's why we are keeping fish. That's why I'm keeping fish. Huge debate about this. And the tomato fish, which turns out is called a Chinese paradise fish. And in Hungarian, paradise and tomato are the same words. So That's where my confusion came from. And I think they look very nice together. They behave very nicely with each other as well. Plants-wise, it's all coming together. It looks as it should. The blister is becoming a bit too big. It needs a trim, definitely. The trim would help with the colors as well, because it's not as red as I expected it to be. The hardscape itself, this is not the first time we see this. The turley stone, it has quite a big amount of algae growing on it. Even though the scape is clean, the tank is clean, we don't have algae issues, but this type of rock is very prone to growing algae on itself. In this case, I actually like it. It fits the scape very nicely. If I were to use this for an Iwagumi layout, this would be too much algae. Obviously you can clean it off, but if you don't want to be bothered by that, probably not the best choice for a clean Iwagumi. But it's very good for this. It's very good for such a style. I assume it would be very good for a forest layout as well, for the same reason. I think in a forest layout, the rocks being a bit greenish, it helps the layout. So keep that in mind if you want to choose this for any project. Now, as I mentioned before, this tank doesn't have a lot left in itself. We have the issues in the glue. It's gonna come apart on its own if we don't do it before. So we're gonna probably tear this down in about a month or two. It's time to get a new front glass. The whole thing is gonna be re-glued to be safe. And I already have my 2027 contest layout very much outlined in my head. I have the hardscape for it already, and I'm going to start working on it in the autumn, hopefully, so I don't get in the issue of being too late, starting too late, and not having enough time and energy and so on, which I've been suffering with for the past 2 years. If you are curious how it goes when it goes well, my best results on IAPLC was built in the very same tank, so you can check out the video about that build over wherever on the screen. So thank you very much for joining me. Please let me know what you think about how this turned out, and see you next time. Goodbye.